going to get a grip in 2017. We're starting this year with a series entitled Get a Grip, and we want to get a grip on some things in this new year. I think it's a good time to take stock of where we are, where we need to go, and just get a handle or get a grip on some things. We're in Hebrews chapter 12. We're going to talk about 4 different principles, 4 different messages that we need to get a grip on the year coming up, 2017. Today we're going to talk about strengthening the areas that are weak in our lives. Next week we're going to talk about developing vision as an individual and as a family, developing God's vision for your life in 2017 and getting on the same page with where you're going. That's next week. The third week we're going to talk about how to live at peace with others. And then the last week, we're going to talk about letting go of bitterness and getting all bitterness out of your life so you can get a grip in 2017. But today, we're going to talk about strengthening what is weak. Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 12 says this: "Take a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees." I love this. Take a new grip. Have you ever carried something heavy? When Alexa and I started, when we got married and started in ministry, we started pastoring a church with about 25 people and basically started with nothing. And all our furniture was given to us. And somebody gave us this great big old sleeper sofa. That was our first bed. Have any of you ever slept on a sleeper sofa? Let me rephrase that. Have any of you ever tried to sleep on a sleeper sofa with that big bar in your back? I mean, when you're young, you don't know all that, but you realize really quickly. Have any of you ever tried to move a sleeper sofa? Anybody? One of the worst things on earth to try to move. When we moved here, we moved into an apartment. When we moved to Hendersonville, a small duplex, and then we got a house and moved to the house. Then we got rid of that thing and moved it to the church office. And one of the same guys helped us move all 3 times. His mother was here this morning. It's Robbie Wilson, Mary's son. And the third time he said, "Preacher, I'm not moving this couch again. No matter what you do to me, every time I've moved you, I get the couch." That thing was a beast to move. It was so heavy. Every time we moved that thing, and I helped a lot myself, we would have to get to a place and just say, "We got to sit this thing down for a minute. I've just got to get a new grip on this. It feels like my fingers are breaking." Have you ever been carrying something for so long you said, "Listen, let's just put it down for a minute, regroup, and get a new grip"? That's what the writer of Hebrews is talking about, taking a new grip with your tired hands. So today, I want to share quickly with you 3 principles we can get into our lives. We need to get in our minds and our hearts today if we want to get a new grip for 2017. Number 1, I must understand God's discipline. The whole chapter, Hebrews chapter 12, is talking about the discipline of God. He's talking to people who've been through pain. He's talking to people who God has placed under discipline. And that word discipline is often misunderstood. Do you know there's a difference between discipline and punishment? The word discipline is akin to and from the same word as the word disciple. A disciple of Jesus Christ is one who has been brought under the discipline of God. But it's easy to misunderstand discipline. When God has you in a place when you're walking through some pain, it's easy to get upset with God and saying, "God, why are you doing this to me?" Did anybody get spanked growing up? Raise your hand up high if you got spanked. I'm beginning to understand some of you. Anybody sitting beside somebody that should have got a few more? No, be careful with that. I got spanked growing up, and at the time I could not. Now, I was never abused. I started to say was never hurt, but yes, it did hurt. But the worst thing about it was this person who loved me and cared for me all of a sudden turning violent on me. My mom used to get a switch, and she would get me by the hand. They called it hickory tea. Have any of you ever had any hickory tea? Grab me, and we'd go around in circles. And my mom would always ask me as I got spanked if I was ever going to do it again. What am I going to say? No. I can still hear her. "Are you ever going to do it?" I mean, it was in rhythm. It's easy to misunderstand discipline. But I want you to understand the heart of the Father this morning. God's heart is not to punish us. His heart is to teach us. His heart is to make us disciples. If we understand, when we are parents, it's easier to understand the heart of the Father. I have 2 children, and I love them very much, and I'm thankful for them, but we've had to discipline them before. Recently, one of my children got a new phone, and you know phones are expensive. One of my children, and I'm trying to hide which one of my children this is so I won't get in trouble, but one of my children got a new phone and threw the phone in their backpack and then threw the backpack in their locker at school. New phone goes in the backpack. Backpack gets thrown into the locker. So my child comes home that day from school with a major crisis. Dad, I've cracked the screen on my new phone. And of course, I didn't have insurance on the phone. So I went back to the guy at the mobile phone company. I said, what can I do? He said, you're going to have to go to the Apple store and see what they do. And it's probably going to cost you more to get it fixed than it would be to buy another one. And I said, I just bought this one. So I went to my child and I said, dear child of mine, Dad loves you, but you're going to pay for this phone. This phone repair is going to come out of your allowance. Why? Now some of you may be out there thinking, what a terrible, ugly dad this is. So you're on my side. That's good to know. Well, the story just got a whole lot better now that I know you're with me. Said you're going to pay out of your allowance to fix this phone. We wound up going, and it didn't cost nearly as much. They were able to put a new screen on for a lot cheaper than we thought, but this child had to pay for it. Why? Some people may think, well, Dad, you should bail them out. Dad, you should take care of that cost. You're a dad, you should do it. Now I understand you do bail your children out of some things and you help them out of some trouble. I didn't want my child to hurt. I didn't want to say, well, you broke your phone, so I'm going to show you, you're going to pay. I didn't take any joy out of my child having to pay for the broken phone. But I wanted them to learn that if you don't take care of things, you've got to buy them 2 or 3 times. And if I didn't allow them to feel the pain of that consequence, then they would never learn that lesson, and that phone would get tossed into the locker again. How many of you know the next time they go to toss the backpack in the locker, they're going to think about it because they felt the pain of it? See, we've got to understand God's discipline, that God doesn't let us go through pain to punish us and to say, I'll show you, you hurt me, so I'm going to make you hurt. God lets us feel some pain so that we can grow up. 2016 may have been a tough year for you. The whole of Hebrews chapter 12 talks about receiving the discipline of God, and maybe you felt that. Maybe you went through some pain. I've learned this about pain. It's easy for me to blame God for my pain, but in truth, I cause a lot of my own pain. God tried to keep me from a lot of pain, and I stubbornly did my own thing, and I got my own pain. Sometimes I go through pain because of my own bad choices. There are times I go through pain because of others' bad choices. There are times, just being honest, there are times you go through pain because you did the right thing. Sometimes doing the right thing will cause pain in your life. You will be persecuted. People will reject you. People will oppose you sometimes because you did the right thing. God doesn't cause this pain, but He allows this pain to come into our lives so that we can be brought under discipline and therefore be a disciple of Jesus Christ. I want you to understand the heart of the Father in bringing you under discipline. Maybe you had a tough 2016. Maybe things happened that were just out of your control. Maybe you've been through pain this year. Hebrews chapter 12 tells us, hang in there. Don't despise the discipline of God, because if He loves you, He's going to bring you under discipline. If you are truly His child, He's going to discipline you. So step 1 is understand God's discipline. We need to understand when something hurts, it's pointing to something that needs to be done. Pain is a good indicator that something needs to change. Any of you wait until your tooth hurts to go to the dentist? That's a bad move. Because a lot of times they have to pull your tooth. Or they have to drill out half of your tooth. How do I know that? None of your business. Or you wait till the check engine light comes on to get your car worked on. Wait till that light comes on and says, change the oil now, stupid. My car has to say that. Pain, when something's knocking, it means there's something that needs to be addressed. See, step 2 is this. I've got to understand God's discipline, but I've got to acknowledge also, secondly, my own weaknesses. The discipline of God and the pain that comes in my life is pointing to areas in my life in which I need to grow. When something's knocking, something's wrong. I got a newer car last summer and enjoying it, and got about 20,000 miles on it. And I noticed the other day I was out Christmas shopping and going through stoplights, and every time I put on brakes, I could feel something knocking up under the floorboard. And I thought, this is bad. This car's still under warranty. I've barely driven this car, and every time I step on the brakes, something's knocking, and it felt like something in the suspension. So I called the dealership. I said, listen, this car is still under warranty. And every time I step on the brakes, something's knocking underneath. He said, Mr. Craver, I'm sure I know what that is. There's a bolt loose in the suspension. He said, we've had that problem a little bit with this particular bolt. He said, it's not dangerous. Just bring it in. We'll tighten it up. It's under warranty. Won't cost you anything. So I brought it in and left it there at 8 o'clock in the morning and didn't hear anything all day. He told me, he said, now, it's under warranty if it's craftsmanship, but if a rock or something hit it or you hit something, you're going to have to pay for that. And all day long, they didn't call me, and I said, uh-oh. Do you ever just have negative thoughts? I just knew it was going to cost me $1,000. I just knew I was going to have to pay $1,000. I don't know why I had that in my head. I dreaded the phone call. It gets to be about 5 o'clock, and I called, and I said, what's going on with my car? Please tell me it's okay. They said, we cannot figure it out. He said, we've tightened every bolt. We have driven it around. I've sent the other guy. He said, we sent 2 guys out to drive your car, and it's still knocking, and we don't know what's wrong. He said, I've got a guy out in it right now, testing it out, and he'll be back in about 10 minutes, and I'll call you back. So he finally called me back, and I'm just ready for him to say, $1,000. He said, Mr. Craver, we've tightened every bolt. We've checked everything on your car. We've driven it around 3 times, and it's still knocking. He said, but we found the problem. He said, there's a water bottle under your driver's seat. And he said, and there's a bottle of lotion right beside the water bottle. And every time you put on brakes, that bottle's rolling around. And I said, I'm sorry, I said, how much is that going to cost me? I think the guy felt sorry for me. I'm so stupid, he felt sorry for me. He said, Mr. Craver, we're just going to let you slide this time. Incidentally, that water bottle belonged to the same child that broke the phone. When something's knocking, something's wrong. See, this verse here says this. Get a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees. You've got to come to a place of acknowledging that your hands are tired and your knees are weak. We are the worst. I can tell you, men, we tend to be the worst at this, guys. And I'm not trying to beat you up or say, but I know from my own experience, we tend to not acknowledge when things are hurting. We tend to press on. But there comes a time we have to acknowledge that our pain is pointing to a weak area in our lives. Maybe the hands are tired. Hands represent our service. What we do for people. What we do in the ministry, what we do in our careers. Hands represent that. Sometimes all of us serve so diligently that we forget to take care of our hands. The word here for tired doesn't mean just fatigued. The word for tired means pushed beyond fatigue to the point of neglect. It's driving the car 10,000 miles without an oil change. It's pushing your body in service to a place that you can't go on anymore and your hands are tired. You've served so long that you're broken. Let me tell you something. They don't teach you to say this in Bible college. You're not supposed to say it. But sometimes you need to take a break from ministry to take care of things that are more important. I know I'm not supposed to say that. Nate, I hope we don't get 20,000 breaks taken today or we're going to be in trouble. Sometimes you need a rest. Sometimes you're so involved in ministry. I was with a pastor in a group. They asked me to come talk to their church, and they actually asked me to do a little consulting with their church some time ago. And I was with them for several days, and they asked me what I could help them with. And I said, you guys are at church far too much. I said, what? I said, you're here all the time. I said, this lady over here tells me her schedule, and she's been at church every night for the last 2 weeks. That's going to blow up eventually. You got to slow down and take care of yourself. Sometimes we tell people who are in ministry, they start going through problems. Let me tell you, if you're at church every night and you're doing ministry every night, your family's going to suffer. We've told people many times, you're going through some sort of family problem, your marriage is in crisis, take 90 days off from ministry and tend to your family. And then let's talk about you getting involved again. That's not a punishment. That's not saying, hey, your marriage is in trouble, so you're no good. Anybody ever had marriage problems? If you've been married, you've got some marriage problems. Come on. If you couldn't minister here without having never had marriage problems, I couldn't be up here today. I fought with my wife. She's fought with me. We've been to counseling before. Because I'm stubborn. She's not. You know her. She's not stubborn at all. We both are. We've had to work on things. Acknowledge that your hands are tired. Acknowledge that you can't serve everybody and be the solution to everybody's problems. Take a break, take a rest, slow down, and take care of yourself. If your marriage dies, it's going to affect your ministry. If your family falls to pieces, you're not going to be able to serve. The hands talk about serving. Then it says this, and strengthen your weak knees. The knees are talking about our stability, our foundation. Things like our relationships, things like our marriage, things like our children, that we have to sit back and acknowledge. We have to step back and take inventory of what's going on. And guys, we're the worst at that. We're just not in touch with that sometimes. I can't tell you over the years, I've been in ministry, 23 years this year in pastoral ministry, and I can't tell you the number of times I've had men come to me and say, Pastor, my wife wants to leave and I don't know why. I thought everything was okay, and all of a sudden she's checking out. She's ready to move out, and I'm sitting there with a guy whose marriage is about to fall to pieces, and he's clueless. He doesn't know anything's wrong. It's not because we're stupid. It's not because we're stupid. Again, I say, it's not. We're just stubborn. Something in us just has the desire to press on and it'll get better. Guys, come on now. Let's just get honest. We're gonna man up here. That's our solution to everything. We're just gonna man up, press on, get her done. It's gonna be all right. We're gonna keep doing this. Without acknowledging there's some weakness in the knees. There's some weakness, some foundational weakness in our relationships that need to be addressed. The discipline of God will bring some pain into your life, but that pain will point you to some areas that you need to deal with. Let your pain be productive. Pain does not have to be destructive in your life. It can be wonderfully productive if you'll let it bring you to a place of honesty, a place of acknowledging where you are and the things you need to give to God. I want to challenge you this year, starting out 2017, to do an inventory. Everybody's going to get a physical this year, right? Everybody's going to get a physical. Everybody's going to let the doctor check you out. I lost some of you. You're just gone. I'm going to turn 49 this year. The next year I'll be the big 5-0. I understand that physicals get a lot more exciting after you're 50. Guy told me the other day, when you turn 50, they're going to do all kinds of tests on you that you never knew. They're going to probe and prod and do all kind of things. It's just wonderful. You need to go, though, and let a doctor check you out. Because they can press on an area and it hurts and it leads them to something that needs to be healed. But you need to do something else. You need to have a relational physical. You need to talk to your spouse if you're married and say, I just want to know that we're on the same page going forward in 2017. You've had some arguments. You've had some arguments. You know, it works for the Jedis in Star Wars. You've had some arguments, and everybody just repeats it. It doesn't work that way for me. Please don't listen. Anybody had any arguments here? I'm so blessed. If you're visiting with us today, I just want you to know this is a perfect church here. Nobody ever fights. Only me. I'm the only one that ever does anything. If you're married, you've had some fights. You ever had a fight that you just couldn't resolve? And you just take that issue and put it over on the shelf? Anybody know what I'm talking about? And it's still there. And you just kind of get past it and it kind of fizzles a little bit. But as soon as something happened, that thing comes flying off the shelf again into your relationship. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You just kind of sit it over there. Can 2017 be the year that we just clean off those shelves? Say, preacher, now it's that's difficult. Because as soon as we go into that shelf there, we're going to fight again. You may need some help. You may need a counselor. You may need a pastor. You may need a friend to come into your life and help you work through it. But you need to acknowledge your weak knees, because these foundational issues will keep your hands from serving. 2017, you need to get a new grip on your relationships. You need to talk to your spouse. You need to talk to your children. You need to find out that your relationship was good between you and your children. I had a friend tell me one time he sat down his children, and they were older, and he said, is there anything I've done or anything we need to get straight, anything we can work out, anything I need to apologize to you for? And it was a very healing conversation. I thought, that's a wonderful thing. I'm going to do that with my kids. As soon as they're not teenagers, I'm going to do that with them. But you need to talk with them and say, if I've ever done anything that's hurt you, I've had to apologize to my children a ton. You need to do a relational inventory and say, if there's anything hurting here, let's resolve it. If there's anything we've put on the shelf between spouses and it's still there, let's get some help and deal with it so we can go through 2017 with all these issues clear. Acknowledge the areas of service that you're getting weak in. Acknowledge your weak knees and the foundational issues that are continuing to stress your life. Now, the last thing, first of all, we must understand God's discipline. We must acknowledge our weaknesses, but I must receive God's strength. The word here, go back to the verse, the word here in the Greek for two of these things here, when it says get a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees, take a new grip and strengthen is just one word in the Greek. It's not even two phrases, it's just one word. And that particular word is only used 2 or 3 times in the New Testament. It's not a common word in Greek. And it's very interesting where that word is used. It's used in Luke chapter 13 when Jesus encountered a woman who was crippled and bent over. And the stress and cares and the worries of life had bent her over and crippled her. And the Bible said Jesus touched her and she was healed and straightened up. And that word for her being straightened up is the same word for taking a new grip and strengthening weak knees. It's something that Jesus does miraculously in your life. It's not something I can give you a 3-step strategy to strengthening your knees and getting a new grip. It's something that you do when you bring yourself under the discipline of God and acknowledge the areas and you bring them to Him. He does something supernatural. The Bible says, they that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall, what does it say? Mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not faint. Those who wait on the Lord. What does waiting mean? It doesn't mean sitting around saying, all right, God, come on now. I've done plenty of that. Have you? Hurry up, God. I'm still here. Waiting means bringing yourself under His authority. Bringing yourself under His discipline. Submitting yourself to His will and trusting Him. When you do that, the Bible said, you will renew your strength. God, by His Spirit, will bring restoration into your life. And the tired hands that are neglected, you'll begin to take care of again. The weak knees, the foundational issues that threaten to destabilize your whole life, your service and everything, God will bring strength to again. Let's get a new grip in 2017. Amen. We're going to commit to this. We're not going to ignore our pain. Can I get an amen? We're not going to take our problems and shove them off on the shelf somewhere, guys, and hope they'll go away. We're going to engage them and deal with them and ask God to bring healing, and as we do that, He will. Can I ask everyone to stand? Would you stand to your feet, please? I want you to bow your head.